Then the NFC South, you got the Tampa Bay Bucks starting it off week 11. The gauntlet 1 through 10. I mean, they just have to play everybody basically. They get Detroit, Philly, Atlanta, at New Orleans, Baltimore, Atlanta again, and then at KC, and then San Francisco at home. I see them winning out of those games that are up there. They probably beat New Orleans. They probably split it with Atlanta. I really have a hard time finding another game that they win, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's the NFL, so you can't always just be like,
right,
the favorite's going to win every time, because that just doesn't happen.
Give them Philly.
Sure.
Whatever.
I mean, whatever. But still, like you said, 3 to 4 wins in the first 10 weeks is a tough start. And I know this division is the worst in football, but Atlanta has one of the easiest schedules. We showed the graphic earlier.
Mm-hmm.
How much theirs compares to everybody else. You're not going to win this division at 8-9, 9-8. I don't think. And so they could be out of the running and be shooting for a wild card. Now, you could see a wild card team get in at 8 wins in the NFC. But I think they're going to have some ground to make up. And then after that stretch, 4 out of 5 road games, right after the bye. You finish 2 at home with Carolina, New Orleans. Probably wins, but will they matter at that point?
Right.
It'll be very interesting. It sucks for Baker Mayfield because I was really happy with his, rebound season. He earned his extension, every single dollar that he received in his $100 million contract. But, if he regresses this year, I don't want the front office to be like, okay, new quarterback. And then all of a sudden he's on the hot seat again, because I don't think he deserves that. Despite the whole conference or the whole division having a really, formidable, easy schedule, Tampa Bay, obviously they won the division, so they have the hardest one. And, it's hard to see them not rebounding, but I guess repeating the success that they had towards the end of the season. 9-win team that upset Philly and did it emphatically.
Right.
And then obviously with Detroit, who had San Fran on the ropes. Well, Tampa Bay was right there with them. And then Baker played a perfect game. And then on his potential game-tying drive through a pick is what it is. That happens. But I don't know if they can be back in that situation once again.
Yeah, and they do have an easier stretch to end the year. Let's hope that Baker's still the quarterback and they haven't decided to do something crazy, because it's the NFL. Anything can happen. New Orleans, they have one of the they only have one division game after week 10, so all of their division games are early.
Yeah, that was strange,
and that seems a little odd for sure. Which the only division game after week 10 is week 18.
Yeah,
because they're all division games. So kind of really weird how they did that. And then they have a tough stretch throughout week 2 through 5. Got to go to Dallas, go to Atlanta, and go to KC, and then they play Philly. I mean, I think that's an 0-4 stretch, obviously. And then they're going to play the division. So they'll probably come out of by week 10, 3-7 to me? 2-8?
No. That's crazy to me, but no, because there are other games on aside of that. Is, you get home games against Tampa, Denver, Carolina, at Chargers, neutral site game, at Carolina, probably be favored, and then home games against Atlanta and Cleveland. Like, all of those games could be won, and they could just lose that 4-game stretch that we talked about. That's the frustrating thing about New Orleans, is they're another team that's really hard to place. Wouldn't be shocked if they were 3-7. But just because they lose that 4-game stretch, I don't anticipate, them being dogs in many of those other games.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. Let's place them at 5-5, 5-6, just to, where their roster probably lies in the NFL. They were, I believe, around 24, 25 in our power rankings.
Yeah.
So we're not high on them, but they're probably going to overachieve because they're stretching. Then after the bye, they come out Rams home, Giants, Washington, then you have the Raiders, and then the Bucks included in those games to end the year. So
strength of schedule matters, guys.
It does. So they're like a 5-win team that's probably going to win 7-8 games just by default, and they're going to probably kick themselves out of the discussion for the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in this draft class. So they're probably going to be just in a purgatory of just too good to suck, but not good enough to
Right, of course.
enter the upper echelon of the NFC.
And then you get to the Atlanta Falcons, betting favorite to win this division. For the first 5 games are at home, and then the final 8 games are against teams that did not make the playoffs in 2023. Easiest schedule, easiest win, lowest win total against for the opponents. Atlanta kind of has it set up for them. They have a solid offense. They have a solid team. Weird drafting, whatever, but they look like the favorites in this division. It is what it is. So
yeah, I mean, similar to Detroit last year in 2023, their draft was very puzzling. They overdrafted Jahmyr Gibbs by about 20 spots. Jack Campbell wasn't considered a first rounder by any, and they took him in the top 20, and they still won the division for the first time in 30 years.
Right.
So Atlanta is in the similar boat. We hated their draft, and they're still going to win the division anyways.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we feel. I believe, outside of Kansas City, they're the biggest favorite in terms of odds to win the division. It's not a number that you'd want to bet, but it's hard to just see a path where they don't. Even if Kirk doesn't come back and, isn't his old self, and they go to Michael Penix, they could still win 10 games with this schedule.
Absolutely. And then Carolina, they're not going to play anybody until week 11. Any playoff teams from last year until week 11. I mean, Carolina has an opportunity to be a 4, 5, 6 win team because of the fact that they improved on offense, but more so than that, they have one of the easiest schedules in football. So I could see them, of course, divisionally, they could win some games. You could beat the Saints. They could possibly find a way to beat the Bucks, maybe even Atlanta. All domes, for the most part, except for the Bucks. So, there's opportunities there. And then they're going to play all the 4th place teams. They're going to get the easiest schedule. And they have a chance to do a little bit, but it's not going to be, it's not going to turn around the franchise or anything like that. They're just going to be a bottom team that does better than expected.
I don't anticipate them being a team that, we talked about Arizona being the thorn in people's side because of their, they're just so young. I don't see them being a team that is knocking out Kansas City surprisingly, or Dallas, or Cincinnati, etc. But a lot of winnable games. Like you said, the easiest division in football, first and foremost. That's besides the point. So give them optimistically 2 to 3 wins. Wouldn't be shocked if it was more. And then Washington, you play the Giants, you play Tampa, or I'm sorry, not Tampa, they're divisional. Arizona. So there's a good amount of games where it's just like, yeah, they're basically Houston last year, where Houston bottom lowest win total, and obviously vaulted to win the AFC South. It was one of the Final 4. They will not win the division, but they're the lowest win total again, 4.5, and probably an easier bet to win 5-6 games just because of their schedule. And I expect a lot of they did a lot of positive things. Whether or not we think that Brooks and Sanders and Leggett will pan out, they're trying to build around Bryce Young.
Yeah, they did something.
And I don't think Bryce Young, everything was primarily like, oh, he just can't play at this level. He just went into a shitstorm and tried to make everything work,
awful.
And it just did not. So instead of Josh Rosening it or Sam Darnolding it, they're like, okay, our bad. Let's try this again.
It's a trickle-down effect, too. It starts at the top. They haven't been good in a while. They haven't had, they got Cam Newton a while back, and they haven't had anything that spectacular since, basically. But they've, they could, in turn, get better, is how I look at it. And so just losing Brian Burns was really sad. Losing most of their defense was hard because they were so good on defense. But we saw what that meant. It meant their 30th or 31st offense couldn't get them anywhere, couldn't win games. And they needed to do something on that side of the ball rather than keep their top 5 defense. So they tried that. We will see what happens.